Hi everybody, welcome to Indy Car on the 18th of April 2019. I'm Gordon Ross. Today Indy Car is going to have a look at two subjects, the first one of which has been debated before, but it's the new Scottish currency that will be used after the end of the union with England. And the second piece of discussion today is going to concern how we achieve that independence, and I'll be looking at an idea expressed in a letter to the National this week, which explained the benefits of using a Holyrood General Election as the means to obtaining independence rather than a referendum. So we'll come back to that just shortly. But first of all, to the currency. And the SNP has been holding a series of consultative meetings ahead of its planned conference in the next few weeks. Now, one of these meetings, there have been a lot of them, but the main discussion has been on whether to accept the so-called 6 conditions which were being placed on the Scottish currency by the SNP's Growth Commission and its report, which had suggested that in the first Parliament of Scotland, after it's ended its union with England, there should be the introduction of a new currency for Scotland. But the conditions that were placed on that by the Commission were that it should meet 6 conditions. It's a bit like Labour's 6 conditions for Brexit. But one of the key ones was the sterlingisation idea. Now, this is using British pound sterling until such time as the Scottish currency can prove several different things at once. Now, one of those things is that it has sufficient foreign currency reserve. Now, that's basically foreign earnings in a bank account in the name of the nation. So that would be things like dollars or yen or rubles or whatever other currencies we have obtained from transactions in trading with other countries. Now, those currencies would usually be banked together as a big, huge basket of currencies. In other words, a big pot of foreign money, which is more likely to hold its value more stably than just, say, our own currency, because our own currency is just one out of a whole bunch of dozens of different currencies throughout the world. Now, having a bunch of them, it's more likely that the value of that pot of foreign currency will hold its value more stably than if we put the money in there in Scottish pounds or British pounds. So one of the things they wanted in this condition was to prove that we had enough of that foreign currency in a central bank. We also had to prove that there was financial sustainability, that the new Scottish pound could sustain itself and keep its value. Now, a lot of these tests, these are just 2 of the tests incidentally, but a lot of these tests are very difficult to prove anyway without actually having the currency in the first place. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. If you're designing a currency that you're going to use, but you're not going to use it unless that currency can prove itself first, you're kind of putting the cart before the horse. And a lot of people have complained that by using sterling, by using the British pound while we're waiting to use our own currency, basically hands over control of the financial levers of Scotland to London, the Bank of England and the British Treasury, because the value of the UK pound is set there and the interest rates are set there. And that would basically imprison the Scottish financial system and economic system and currency system, would imprison it in the Bank of England. We wouldn't be able to control our own interest rates, and therefore we wouldn't be able to control our economy properly. Without being able to set interest rates and decide how much currency, how much money is flowing around and washing around in the economy at any one time, we have no control over the currency. And so the Growth Commission's findings are being hotly contested, and the SNP's own branches and members have put forward a suggestion that that particular part of the Growth Commission report be dropped completely from all plans for the currency. Now, I don't know whether, because I'm not a member of the SNP, whether that's going to happen, but it's certainly going to be discussed at the conference. Myself, I'm in favour of going with our own currency from the beginning and building up our foreign currency reserves as we go. Now, remember, a new currency is going to have to spend a while finding its feet, finding its value. And foreign currency is needed inside the central bank to do that, but it's not the only way of guaranteeing the value of the currency. Things like the future oil reserves of Scotland, the future gas reserves, the future energy exports, the future of its trading surpluses, all those are bankable commodities as well. These are all collateral. These are things that you can take to the bank, as it were, and say, look, Scotland has these resources. They are worth so many trillions. We don't need the foreign currency in the bank yet to guarantee the value of the Scottish pound. We just need people to know that we own these resources, and then they know that our currency will be a good bet, and they will buy into it. They will put foreign currency reserves into the Scottish Central Bank or the Scottish Investment Bank, whichever. So, although this is a very complicated area, it seems, at least to me anyway, that people in the SNP are not actually just going to quietly lie down and let the Growth Commission, which is, and let's face it, it is a very, very conservative commission, which was designed to show that independence could be practically attained or achieved even using the Bank of England, Tory spending principles, austerity, and all of the other ridiculously stupid punitive techniques that the British government uses to manage its financial situation could be applied to independent Scotland, and you could still have independence. Even without your oil money, you could still have independence, which is great. It proves the fact that you could be independent even if you run the country as badly as the Tory government in London. But it doesn't address the fact that that's not how the new Scottish state is actually going to manage its resources. It's not going to run like that at all. Why would you want to? The whole point of splitting away from England and ending the union with them is to do things differently and do things better, so that Scotland is better off and there is a more even spread of wealth throughout society, instead of all the money flowing into the pockets of the wealthy as it does under the present system. So that's the first thing. So there is an active debate going on at the moment within the SNP and within the government of Scotland at the moment about this currency issue. It will be, and I expect it to be, sorted out at the SNP conference. We will see some action on that. I'm certain of it, and I'm also certain that there are going to be big, big announcements in this SNP conference. Hopefully announcements that we've all been waiting for a long time to hear. So on the currency, I expect there to be a bit of a battle going on within the conference to get these restrictions removed, to have this Growth Commission recommendation entirely kicked into the long grass, because it's just not going to be suitable for Scotland's new economy, in my opinion. Other people agree or disagree, but in my opinion, I think it would be stupid to copy the example of the Tories and the way they run England. Okay, so moving on from that now to actually how to get independence. There's been an awful lot of talk about referendums and advisory referendums and whether or not they would be acceptable in Section 30 orders. And we keep chasing ourselves around the block with this argument. It's a circular argument. It always comes back to the same thing. Would an advisory referendum be an accepted method internationally for Scotland to say it's ending its treaty with England and it's becoming an independent country again? Or would it not? And I think the problem with this is it's a catch-22. You go for a Section 30 order, you know you're not going to get it. You go with an advisory referendum, nobody's going to recognise it. So it doesn't matter which one of these two choices you try to go for, neither of them is going to work. The SNP's public position at the moment is that they will keep fighting to get the Section 30 order. The problem with that is it's not going to happen, and we all know it's not going to happen, but that's the public position just now. A letter appeared 2 days ago in the National. The name of the author I forget at the moment, but I'll come back to that maybe another time. But this author wrote quite a lengthy letter about why he felt that the best way for Scots to express their opinions on independence was to have a general election at Holyrood. Now, there is one which is scheduled for 2021, I think, if I remember correctly. So it's going to happen fairly soon, in about a year's time anyway. And that would give us a year to plan a campaign for independence. And what he's suggested is that the SNP and the Greens and anybody else who is pro-independence and is putting forward candidates for the first past the post part of the election should make it a single issue, sorry, not referendum, election. The first past the post part of the Scottish General Election is using the existing system that's used in Westminster, where the first person to get to win a seat basically takes the seat. So it's first past the post is whoever gets the lion's share of the votes, and where nobody else can get more than that, they take the seat. Now, as you know, there is an additional vote in the Scottish parliamentary elections called the list votes, and these are given based on the number of votes cast by smaller parties, and are designed to create a balance in Holyrood, so that no one party can gain dominance, and so there is very little chance of them having an overall majority in Holyrood. But what was suggested is that we don't fight for independence in the list votes at all. We fight for independence only in the first past the post elections. Now, those are the constituency votes, if you like. So you have a constituency that you live in, and you will elect an MSP for that constituency. And what he proposes is that pro-independence parties put up their candidates for those constituencies based on a single issue of we want independence, and anyone who votes for me is voting for independence. It's an indicative vote. So in other words, if that person wins that seat, then that constituency is in favour of independence. And what he's proposing is that if there is an overall majority of independence supporting parties who win those seats, then there should then be a declaration of independence. There should then be a movement towards independence. This is a very interesting way of doing it, because it's democratic. It is an established electoral system which is entirely legal, which was designed by the UK, and which uses all of their rules and regulations to elect official representatives. Now, if we discount the additional votes, because they are allocated as a consolation prize for the smaller parties, but let's say we discount those for the time being. If it's only done by the first past the post system, and there are, I can't remember, I think there's something like 90 seats to be elected in this way. If the SNP wins the majority of those seats, then we declare for independence, because the majority of people who vote will not vote just in one part, they'll vote in both the first past the post and in the second preferences as well. So it has to be clearly defined that it's the first past the post system is going to decide independence. Now, the good thing about this is that the Tories and the Labour Party and anybody else from the UK Unionist parties cannot then boycott it, because this is a general election in which they want to win seats. And if they don't put up candidates, or they don't vote for their own candidates because they boycotted it, if they boycott an election, then they have no right to any opinion at all, because you cannot just not stand candidates in a general election. And this is something that the Tories would find unpalatable, because they are serial voters. The Tory party is famous for getting its people out to vote. They always vote, and this is how they manage to hang on so long, is because they always turn up. And as Woody Allen once said, history is written by those who bothered to turn up. This is a way of getting us all to turn up, so none of the pro-UK parties and none of their supporters can boycott it. Because if they boycott it, then they will hand a massive victory to the SNP at Holyrood in a genuine British-designed election, in a system designed by the British parties, by the British state effectively, for that parliament. So they cannot say, well, it's not legitimate, because they designed it. They can't say it's not been fairly won, because they designed the first past the post system. And they cannot say that using that part of the first past the post system as a means of establishing the people's will in terms of independence. They can't say that that's not legitimate, because people are voting for parties. They're not saying, I'm voting yes to independence. They're saying, I'm voting for the party which says that they will declare independence if they win. That's a totally different thing from having a referendum. It's a fascinating idea, and from a legal standpoint, it kicks the argument that the UK parties have been making about Section 30 orders and advisory referendums, kicks it out the door because it doesn't apply. In case of a general election, the electorate has to turn out to vote, because if they don't turn out to vote, then the party that they don't want in power is going to get in, and they're not going to win any seats. If the Tories decided, let's say, that they would boycott the first past the post and only field candidates in the list, is that even legal? I don't think that's all that a good idea. I mean, how's that going to work? That they're going to end up with only list MSPs, and I know quite a lot of Tory MSPs are list anyway, but they can't say that those who voted in first past the post for the independence parties, they can't say that that hasn't happened, and they can't say that they didn't have a chance to vote against it, because they did, but they chose not to exercise it. All of these things would frustrate this whole idea of boycotting, and I think, given a little bit more thought, we could figure out whether this would actually work. It sounds to me like it might fly, because it would be simple enough to organise it. We would just say, on the first vote SNP for independence. On the second vote for however you like, it doesn't matter. But vote first past the post, always vote for the SNP. And if the SNP take all of those seats, that's 90 seats, by the way. That would be 90 seats out of 129. That's a majority in the House anyway, right? Regardless, no matter what else happens, it's a majority. And that means the SNP has won the whole Parliament election and has a majority for the second time in the history of the Parliament. And I think we can also then look, because the voting is counted very accurately in the Scottish General Elections, we can see just how many people voted for the Independence Party that said, we're going to announce independence if we win this election, on the first past the post votes. That would be an amazing thing to do. And not only that, but the European Union would have to respect it, because it was a general election, legally organised under UK rules, right? And the party which said it was going to announce independence won. It's plain and simple. It has to happen, right? Because that party has the strongest mandate you could ever have, by people voting only because they want independence. Only that party offers independence. They don't offer anything else, just independence. They're a one-issue party. If that is the case, then the independence case is proven and the vote is legal. And the European Union, it could be argued to the European Union and the UN that the people of Scotland have spoken, and they've decided they want to end the union with England. And this is a legal way of doing it, because there was no other way allowed. The British government would not allow them a legal referendum, and therefore they've had to do it this way. I think it's an interesting concept. I'm sure you guys will all be thinking and scratching your heads after hearing about this. I recommend to you, if you can find it online, I'll try and dig up the letter, have a read through it, because it's very well thought out. And it convinced me, at least, as a method for obtaining independence. And I think it could be the answer to our problems. I might be wrong. There might be other people out there who know better than I do. Could be the answer. One other final piece of news. Obviously, I'm going to be on, I'm hosting Scotland at 7 tonight. That's 7 p.m. on Broadcasting Scotland, on YouTube and live stream. But also next week, I'll be having a meeting with Dr. McNaught, the man who's written the Scottish Constitution, and we're going to discuss how the Constitution fits into this picture with the new currency and a new way of deciding independence, and when that Constitution might be adopted by the Scottish Parliament. It's beginning at the moment to look as if the stars are beginning to line up, but it's going to take us a while to put all the pieces in the right places to make the move towards independence, and it will take time, and it will take an awful lot of effort by all of us to campaign for it. This may not be the most conventional way of going about independence, but it might be the only way we could do it. And I think, if nothing else, the story of this letter from the national newspaper this week opens up another line of discussion and debate, which I think we need to look at in detail and to see if it's possible. It might well be that this forms part of the plan. Anyway, as usual, if you have any comments or suggestions, or you want to take issue with me over anything, contact me after the show in the usual way, or leave a comment in the comments column here on the live feed. I'll talk to you all later, but I look forward to seeing you all tonight. If you can tune in at 7 o'clock on YouTube, on live stream to Broadcasting Scotland, look out for Scotland at 7 tonight. I'll see you later. Bye bye now.